So I think DeAndre Hunter has been kind of good for the Hawks. I mean, he's not been good by like advanced stat numbers, but in terms of just rookies, I think he's been pretty solid. He's actually had quite a few big scoring games, like over 20-point games and stuff, and that wasn't really his reputation coming into the league. It's supposed to be more of like a 3-and-D multi-position guy, DeMarre Carroll, maybe Luol Deng if his offense pops a little bit more. And he's actually had quite a few, bigger games. And, some of that is because of the Hawks have just needed him to go off the dribble a little bit more. I mean, I think that's been talked about a little bit, where they didn't really envision him doing this much off the dribble, even with Trae Young doing so much. But because of the John Collins injury and whatever else, they just need some dudes who can just do something besides Trae Young, And I think Hunter has done enough things there to be like, oh, this is interesting, perhaps with some more time and him not being forced to do it as much, then he could show some life there, There have been some straight line drives that have been okay. He's even broke down a few defenders off the dribble now and then. It doesn't always look pretty, and it certainly doesn't always work, but it's intriguing for a guy who, when he was coming into the league, you thought, oh, this is just going to be a spot shooter, and if he does anything off the dribble, we'll take it, Now, has his efficiency been great overall? No, but again, because I don't really think the Hawks envisioned him doing this much off the dribble, I'm not super freaked out about it. I mean, 52% of his two-pointers have been assisted. I think in a perfect world, that's closer to 70 or 80%. But again, they just don't really have a lot of guys who can do much off the dribble right now. I mean, Trae Young has had to do a lot for them, and I don't really think it's like Trae Young being selfish. I mean, the other guys have gotten a decent amount of opportunities to do things, but it's also, again, like the Hawks just don't have a lot of options right now. And by the way, DeAndre has had, like his last game against the Knicks was 19 points. He had 21 against the Pacers. He had 28 against Miami on some really good efficiency. So there is something there a little bit. And he has had some games where he's gotten a few trips to the free throw line. So it's something to pay attention to, I think. Now, if we get to his shooting, it seems cool. I mean, 34% on 5 threes a game. He was a good shooter in college. He wasn't doing anything off the dribble or whatever, but just catch and shoots and corner threes and that type of thing. He was pretty good. He's been solid in the NBA. I'm expecting him to just be a good shooter, and that is valuable. I think the perfect world for DeAndre on offense, I mean, I don't know where this shot creating ability that is there and sometimes is not there is going to end up at, but if we can assume that he's just a competent dribbler who can occasionally do some things and maybe make a couple plays in transition, and you're not really ever asking him to ISO or anything, we'll say he has that, and we'll just say that he's a good shooter. We'll say in his prime he shoots 5-6 threes a game, and he shoots about 37%, okay? Then that's a good offensive player who can probably give you a solid 14, 15 points a game, and it won't be anything particularly like crazy, or the highlights aren't going to say a lot, but if you watch it day in and day out, you can see that this guy is definitely a positive player. Now, another part of that is, of course, the defense, which was probably the main thing that he was drafted for. Atlanta's not a good defensive team. We can say why for a myriad of reasons, whether it's Trae Young or, without John Collins, they've just lost some length, and Collins was looking better defensively before the suspension, so whatever it may be. The point is, I don't want to act as if Hunter has been some disappointment defensively. I just think he's had to put more energy on offense than was really envisioned, and as a result, maybe he hasn't stepped into the league being this awesome defensive player, but I think he's been pretty good so far. I mean, not every good defensive prospect is going to be amazing out of the gate, and that's okay. I mean, he all of the projections of him being a good defensive player to potentially a great one are there. I mean, Do we think he's going to be some super athletic dude blocking shots out of nowhere and stuff? I mean, no, but we think of him as a guy who's strong, has a good defensive foundation, and can just play like 35 minutes of good defensive basketball every night where he doesn't blow a lot of assignments and he plays hard and he closes out and he just does all the right things, and before you know it, it's like, oh, this guy's actually one of the best defensive players in the league, and you wouldn't totally know it because maybe the block numbers aren't through the roof or anything. Now, who really knows where he ends up defensively? I mean, maybe he's an all-defense candidate. Maybe he's just pretty good. I don't know. But I feel like DeAndre Hunter is going to be a positive player. I do. I think he's going to be, what did I say before? Like maybe DeMarre Carroll, maybe Luol Deng if his offense is a little better, and that's a good player, potentially a very good player who is beloved by his team's fans and all that, and it's definitely the kind of guy that you need next to Trae Young, right? I mean, in a perfect world, this Atlanta team is constructed around Trae with dudes who can make shots and do something off the dribble, and DeAndre and Cam have both shown some life with the handle. Again, it hasn't been great, and in times it's ugly, but they got time and all that stuff. You have the rim runner in John Collins, and then you just have a switchy defense. You know, Cam has been solid defensively. I think Hunter's good. Collins was better to open the season. That's the blueprint for building the team around Trae Young. So DeAndre Hunter definitely fits into that mold. And that's kind of all I got. I mean, he's an interesting rookie because he hasn't been great. He hasn't been bad. I think he's been asked to do a little too much with the ball, and once this team is healthy, he won't have to do it as much, and he can just focus on off-ball stuff and cutting to the basket and just being that off-ball 3-and-D positional switchy guy, and that's a good player. So I feel pretty good about DeAndre Hunter.